Thanks for downloading a 3CR podcast. 3CR is an independent community radio station based in Melbourne, Australia. We need your financial support to keep going. Go to www.3cr.org.au for more information and to donate online. Now stay tuned for your 3CR podcast.
Good morning, dear listeners. You're listening to Radio 3CR on 855 AM. No music today, Nasser?
No, we're going to get straight into it, Yusuf. It's an action-packed show.
Action-packed show, so stay with us. So sorry about last week's episode. We had a fantastic event the day before.
Well, we concluded Palvember. And we ran out of energy. Well, we have to remember that Palvember included Palestine National Day in the Federation Square. We had the Run for Palestine on the 18th.
Yes.
We walked with John Salisbury as he walks to Adelaide to ask the Labor Party to immediately recognise the state of Palestine when they're next in power. We had the 10th commemoration of the Palestinian national poet Mahmoud Darwish. And then we finished with the Jerusalem Peace Prize.
Jerusalem Peace Prize. What is this prize for those who has never heard of it?
Well, I'd be surprised if they haven't heard of it, because our listeners are devoted listeners, and they would have been listening to us promote it.
One of them who just,
well, the Jerusalem Peace Prize
was busy on the last few days.
Australians for Palestine and the Australia-Palestine Advocacy Network put together the inaugural Jerusalem Al-Quds Peace Prize. And it's a prize to be given to an Australian for their work advocating for the Palestinians. And this year it was awarded to Professor Emeritus Stuart Rees Australian Medal. And it was a fabulous event at the State Parliament in Queen's Hall. And it was sold out. We had the Honourable Bob Carr present the award. We had a former Foreign Minister in Gareth Evans, QC, attended also. Bronwyn Halfpenny, who helped us put the event on, was in attendance, as well as many other, Janet Rice from the Greens, Senator Janet Rice, and many other very important people. But
now, Nasser, I know that there were people who listened to the show they were hoping that the event will not go ahead. But guess what?
Amazingly, we do have listeners that aren't on our side, Yusuf. So for those listeners that aren't on our side who do listen and give up their Saturday mornings, thanks so very much. Because in fact what happened was the Australian Jewish News ran an article saying that Bronwyn Halfpenny had withdrawn her support. The event was being cancelled. And we fielded some emails from those listeners, some of our adversaries, saying, why are we promoting the event, seeing it's going to be cancelled? Well, no. We were there, and it was fantastic. And we had almost 200 people filled to capacity Queen's Hall. Black tie gala event where we recognised the amazing work of Stuart Rees for Palestine. And we've got that video and audio on the JerusalemPeacePrize.com.au website, so you can watch Stuart Rees' speech. You can download the audio if you want to listen to it as a podcast. If you want to read the speech, the text is there. But it's a brilliant 30 minutes expose on the barbarity of Zionism and the injustice that has been perpetuated upon the Palestinians for 71 years.
I was one of the people who attended. I really enjoyed it. Next time, just allow for people who wear casuals, because I had to borrow a jacket from someone. So just allow for this segment of society who are like me.
Well, Yusuf, you're always welcome, even if you came in thongs and a shorts, you know that. But the reality is, one of the things that we wanted to really present to a wide demographic was that the legitimacy of the struggle of Palestine for their rights, or the Palestinians for their rights, but also that here we are in State Parliament in Queen's Hall. This used to be the Parliament of Australia before Canberra. This was where the country was run from, State Parliament Victoria and Queen's Hall. That, Palestine sits here in its eminence, underneath the portrait and the statue of Queen Victoria. That this is where we belong. We don't belong in the shadows. And necessarily, most of our events, as you know, Yusuf, are shorts and T-shirt, because they're either protests or runs or whatever. But this is a special night. On the day of international solidarity with the Palestinian people, in State Parliament, in Queen's Hall, we said Palestine is here. 200 people, two standing ovations for Stuart Rees. So a really phenomenal night. Thank you for attending, Yusuf, and everybody else.
And also I want to remind our listeners that Stuart Rees, the person who was chosen for the award, is one of the outstanding academics in Australia who did wonderful work for humanity, whether for public spending on medical sector,
absolutely,
or
indigenous
environment,
rights,
indigenous rights, and on Palestine. But what he did for Palestine exceeded the expectation, especially before he was not even an advocate for Palestine. He was put on a test, and I remember something he said when he was blackmailed by basically pro-Israeli lobby to withdraw or to uninvite
so we should go
Hanan
back,
Ashrawi.
Just go back a second there, Yusuf. Stuart Rees founded the Conflict and Peace Studies Centre in Sydney University, or University of New South Wales, excuse me. And then from there they created the Sydney Peace Prize, and then he awarded the prize to Hanan Ashrawi, a Palestinian woman, member of parliament, Christian woman, thinking that's a very palatable person.
And also a person who went through the path of peace, because she was one of the first negotiators.
A PhD in English literature.
Just an amazing voice for Palestine.
You would think a very worthy recipient. But the Zionists decided to
attack the foundation and the invitation and Hanan Ashrawi and the Stuart Rees, and to blackmail them, saying that the $250,000 you have in your account will be $0 if you do not uninvite Hanan Ashrawi. And he said, if I don't stand to my principles this time, I will never stand for my principles every time. So he resisted that, and to the credit of also the Honorable Bob Carr, Hanan Ashrawi, they went ahead with that. And of course, this and other, the list is very long on what he did for Palestine.
But he stood steadfast, absolutely.
Stood steadfast, a very worthy recipient of the award. Congratulations, Nasser, for putting together. I know you have done, you have prepared, you have worked months, maybe more than a year. First time I hear you talk about it, now I can say.
Yep.
So congratulations for that.
It was a team job, so there's many people to thank, but I'll accept it on their behalf. So.
Well done, everybody. So we're looking forward to another recipient next year.
Next year, absolutely.
Okay. From here we go to the 100-year anniversary of Sarafand massacre, who in English doesn't have the word massacre. They call it Sarafand affair. Because the word massacre is a little bit, harsh for some.
Well, the reality is, we'll give some context to our listeners. This is a massacre that occurred post the charge of the Light Horse Brigade. So this is after Beersheba is liberated from the Ottomans, and the Australians have, marched across the desert with their horses and cavalry charge, the last great cavalry charge in history. That there's a little bit of yuckiness to the story, and so it was hidden for so many years. But it's the 100th anniversary, Yusuf, and perhaps to give some context to our listeners, the Australians, the New Zealanders, and British, the Anzac forces, were camped in and around Beersheba, and a New Zealand army officer was murdered. Now, what happened next is open to conjecture, but what we do know is somewhere between 50 and 100 Palestinian men were massacred in that night.
And so many homes were burnt.
2 villages completely burnt to the ground.
And so we're talking about full retaliation, unjustified.
A drunken orgy, Yusuf. They were drunk on rum, and there's audio recordings of some ex-diggers, who, perhaps with many years and post-traumatic stress had made confessions. These are audio recordings in the National Archives of these diggers saying it was a drunken orgy. They sent the women and children out and killed every man they could find.
The reality is that when we ask the majority of Australians about what Palestine meant to them, or the involvement of Australian troops in Palestine before World War II, they will have a bit of an imaginary, romanticized portrait about, like you said, the Beersheba, the horses, the triumph. But our narrative doesn't get to make it to history. And like Winston Churchill said, that history is written by the victors. And Britain won, so it got to write history, and we in Australia were taught to read their history, and therefore our narrative didn't make it. And this is an opportunity that we will highlight the injustices. Again, this was the beginning of a century-long Now we live in the 100 year later. It started a gate of massacres, home demolitions, land confiscation, and the list goes on by the British and by the later state of Israel.
Yep. No, it's a tragedy.
So
what is it? 13 months after Balfour, and now 100 years later.
So commemorating the victims of Sarafand massacre.
Onwards and upwards, though, Yusuf, we've had a fantastic year for BDS. Topped off only this past month with Airbnb saying they're not going to, they're withdrawing the listings in the West Bank. We've got 2 now members of the United States Congress who openly endorse BDS.
Rashida.
And Ilhan Omar, Rashida Talib. Who's the first Palestinian American in there. Just interestingly, when you become a fresh congressman or woman, the first thing that happens is you get the APAC brochure. Good news, business class, you're coming with us. We're doing the helicopter tour. You're going to go to Serdot, to the Golan. We're going to show you our vineyards, speak to the Prime Minister.
Paid.
Oh, you're sitting at the front of the plane. Rashida said, A, no, and B, I'm running my own tour to Palestine for other congressmen, so come along with me. So this is the first time that this is going to be happening.
Can I just say one thing here? When Rashida won the elections, one of the major news outlets in Arabic language said that, and a lot of commentators said, she's going to be another spy. She's going to be just a fig leaf. And they doubted that she will play a strong role for Palestine. And I said, look, are you willing to apologize if she endorses BDS? And they said, yes. So I'm going to use my platform to ask this person who knows me very well to put an apology for Rashida because she didn't endorse BDS.
So we have to give her 6 weeks.
6 weeks, let's say, okay, now, yes, because we are heading to Christmas. I expect an apology on his Facebook.
Before the 1st of February.
Not to me, to Rashida, for calling her a spy.
On the 1st of February, we're going to out you.
Yes.
You've been put on notice.
Anyway, go on.
So from there, we had, the great news when Lionel Messi and Argentina pulled out of an exhibition match in Israel. Lana Del Rey, Shakira, Lorde didn't go. The Indian women's movement, representing over 10 million Indian women, endorsed BDS.
Fantastic.
Amnesty International called for an arms embargo on Israel. The UK Labour Party said that they would immediately recognise the state of Palestine and has said we should have voted to freeze arms sales. In Ireland, 50 Irish lawmakers have called for Ireland to stop arming Israel. Dublin became the first European capital to endorse BDS. In Spain and Portugal, parliamentarians denounced the nation-state law. I mean, these are not little things. There's little bits on top of that, and if you go from there to, I think one of our, the cracks. There's a dam that is holding back the truth, and the dam is Zionism. Yeah, but the cracks. You can only put so many fingers in so many holes. But only this week, the Palestinian solidarity movement in the United States was able to get 2 high-ranking officers to not attend a Anti-Defamation League, the ADL in America is a Zionist lobby group, and they were able to get 2 delegates to withdraw from the fully funded tour to come and see how to combat, use Israeli techniques, Israeli technology in the United States. And the reality of these training programs is, whilst they do learn stuff, what actually is the main purpose, and this is a direct quote from the director. He said to the Jerusalem Post in 2015, he said, the officers who participate come back and they are Zionists. They are supporters of Israel's state ideology. Now, it's important to remember that these aren't low-ranking officers. What you're talking about is the police chief of Massachusetts. Colonel Matthew Birmingham is the director of the Vermont State Police. So these are top guys who said, we're not going. Don't want to be complicit, don't want to learn what you're doing. And when you team that up with, the victory that the BDS Australia had with the Royal Flying Doctor Service,
yes,
not allowing Elbit to supply the technology and the training systems. Yep. These are, slow...
The momentum is building.
Little dots. The Durham City Council in North Carolina was the first US city to ban police exchanges with Israel. So, I mean, it's just little stuff. Brand Israel is smelly. And more people are understanding that it's smelly and want nothing to do with it.
And also, we've never expected that we will open a BDS branch in Arab countries, like, for example, Bahrain. Now, while there is a big bad news of normalization in some Arab countries, there are great news coming out.
Great stories. Let's go to Jordan.
And there are also, before we leave BDS, there are advocates from Bahrain, from Qatar, from Saudi Arabia, launching BDS Bahrain, BDS Saudi Arabia, BDS Qatar, because it's no longer possible to hide the normalization. So, on another note, let's go to Bahrain, but let's go to Jordan. Before I speak about it, I want you and the listeners to hear this football chanting of Al Wahdat Football Club. Stay with me. Allah, Palestine, Al-Quds, Arabiya. This is the chanting of the Palestinian football club in, it's a Jordanian football club founded by Palestinian refugees. And the name of the football club is Al-Wahdat. And Al-Wahdat is the Arabic word for the units. When you say Wahdat, you're saying the units. But the meaning of Wahdat is the accommodation units, or the units, basically the houses that were dedicated for Palestinian refugees in 50s and 60s. Later on, these units produced a football club, and now the football club is winning the league in Jordan and has been since 1981, along with Al Faisali, the other Jordanian derby football club. Now, the Asian Football Federation considered this chanting to be political, which has been, this is the chanting that was the chanting of Wahdat since 81, since the inception of the club. And they said that Wahdat will have to pay $10,000 as fines if the crowds repeat this in stadiums, because it has political nature. Now, the response was unexpected from the rival of Wahdat, the Faisali. The purely Jordanian, non-refugees Palestinian Jordanians.
So to give context to the listeners, this is Real Madrid versus Barcelona.
If you ignore the performance.
Yes. The skill set. The goalie is having a smoke. Yeah.
The atmosphere is even more tense and more polarized.
It doesn't matter where they are on the top of the table.
Wahdat Faisali.
Carlton versus Collingwood.
Pretty much, yes. Carlton versus Collingwood. So Al-Faisali came to the solidarity of Palestinians and said, the Wahdat chanting will be our chanting now. If you are going to find Wahdat, you have to find us. And then came Al-Ramtha football club, and then came Al-Hussein football club, and then came the other teams in Jordan in a sign of solidarity with Al-Quds. Because we know that Al-Quds is under, now we are not celebrating. What's the opposite of celebrating? Remembering the 1 year anniversary of Trump's announcement of Jerusalem to be the capital of Israel. So in that context, I want to give credit to Al-Faisali football club.
Also to the solidarity of the Arab with the Palestinians.
The Arab solidarity of Palestinians.
Not our leaders. And when I say our leaders, I'm talking about, the corrupt dictators in the Gulf who have recently met with Benjamin Netanyahu and who
have no problems with normalizing,
and we'll talk about it in another show, but using the most sophisticated Israeli software, the spyware to be able to track their dissidents, to ultimately, this is how they, are able to kill people like Khashoggi in an embassy in Turkey without him even knowing, and this to conspire with the Israelis and Zionism to perpetuate the suffering of their brothers and sisters, the Palestinians.
And to the dislikes of such governments, the crowds, the people, the nations stand always in solidarity with Palestine and their just cause. So good news from Jordan.
That's fantastic news. Yusuf, I think we should whilst we've still got a bit of time, speak about our current Prime Minister. I say current because God knows how much longer he's got here. But Scott Morrison, and his on-the-run announcement in Wentworth that he'd review the embassy move. There's word now coming out of Canberra that he's convened a group called the Wise Elders. And he's, got these wise elders, the former Defence and Foreign Affairs, Dennis Richardson, and former Chief of Defence Force, Sir Angus Houston. He's got them together and a few other people. What he's looking for is an honourable retreat. I mean, the reality, $100 to $200 million to move the embassy.
To save a bit of face. A bit of dignity.
The real fear, and, something that perhaps we haven't actually thought through, is, the scorpion and the frog, crossing the river, and the halfway across, the scorpion stings the frog, and the frog says, "But I was taking you across the river. Why would you sting me?" He goes, "Well, I'm a scorpion. This is what I do," and they both drown. The real worry is that Scott Morrison and his ultra right wing conservatives within the ruling Liberal Party, that maybe they go, "It's time to just scorpion," and they actually, rather than knowing that they're going to lose, say, "Well, this is something we're going to leave behind." And the Shadow Attorney General, Mark Dreyfus, who was on Q&A a couple of weeks ago, wouldn't comment on if Scott Morrison moved the embassy or made an announcement to move the embassy. It couldn't happen before the election in May. Would they undo it? He said, "Well, I can't say we'd undo it." I mean, so the reality is certainly amongst some people there's a fear that maybe as a nuclear option we're going to lose anyway. Why don't we leave this little bit of a bad taste in everybody's mouth? So hopefully wiser heads prevail, but
Well, the reality is, apart from the immorality of this decision, that this is promoting occupation and this is siding with the oppressor, apart from this was a bit of a stupid decision. It says that it was wrong in every level.
Well, it's wrong, and we spoke about it, the pettiness of walking into Australia's most Jewish electorate with an endeavour to bribe the votes of...
Assuming that they will...
Not thinking that the 83% of the constituency that weren't Jewish might see through it. I mean, this is the sort of thing why the Liberal Party in Victoria on a state level lost Hawthorn. I mean, where the average house price is $3 million, they've voted for, and the incoming member for the seat of Hawthorn is a 71-year-old pensioner who lives in a nursing home, beat the shadow treasurer in a suburb or in a constituency where the average house price is well over $2 million. They haven't worked out that this far-right reactionary mentality, Australia isn't that.
No vision.
This is not Donald Trump's Midwest.
No vision.
No vision.
Prisoners. So, Nasser, I want to talk about Shadi Farrah, a Palestinian boy, a 12-year-old, and I want you and our listeners to imagine of a 12-year-old boy who was arrested, brutally interrogated, and sent to prison for 3 years for simply, according to the charges, that one of the Israeli settlers who didn't come to court to give testimony told police that he overheard Shadi and his mates on his way from school back home to Jerusalem that they were plotting a crime against settlers. And for that, he was arrested and interrogated. And when we talk about interrogation, this is a process that can take up to 3 months, with no access to lawyer, with all forms of pressure, including torture and including putting Shadi in winter. It was late November, in cold areas without clothes. And so I had the pleasure to have spoken to Shadi's mother on our radio program in Arabic, Ana Min Hunak. And in my last question, I asked her if she wants to send a message to the Australian mothers who might be listening to us today. So this is Shadi, the mother of Shadi, speaking to any Australian mother. Stay with us.
I would send this note to the Australian mothers. I ask them, do you give your kids a kiss before they go to school? Do you see them carrying the school bag? I am a mother. I've been deprived for 3 years from kissing my son. Every day I go to his bedroom and I see his clothes and toys. Shadi is just a child. His dream is freedom, but his fate was a filthy cell. All he wanted was a toy, a schoolyard, and some sweets.
And that was Shams Musa, who you can listen to her Nakba story next Saturday, so make sure you're listening to us.
Do not miss that.
Do not miss it. Yeah, so fantastic. Thank you again, Shams. But we should really reflect on this tragic situation of this young boy, 12 years old, robbed of his future, 3 years without opportunity for education, 3 years in a harsh adult prison. And we should say, in contravention to the Geneva Conventions, these Israeli prisons are within Israel proper, inside the Green Line. They're not near where the children have been kidnapped from. So the parents to visit the children have to apply for permits. They have to get permits to enter Israel. So the opportunities for them to have meaningful contact with a 12-year-old, 13, 14-year-old, as he spends his 3 years in jail, are close to zero. So this child is disconnected from his family, disconnected from his peers, disconnected from his education. Any hopes and dreams that a 12 or 13-year-old, 14-year-old, 15-year-old child might have had have been vanquished inside a gulag, an Israeli dungeon. And then this child comes out as a 15-year-old. What does he do now? He's too old to go back to grade 6. He's not doesn't have the education to be in Form 3.
So they destroyed his future.
Absolutely.
Not to mention the torture and the humiliation and the medical negligence and denial of lawyers and denial of family visits and all lists of human rights violations that are violations to even Israeli laws.
What could a 12-year-old be doing? At what level of Orwellian craziness is Israel that a 12-year-old is a threat to the state?
The contrast, Shadi told me that in one of her visits to the court, there was a trial of a Jewish settler teenager who actually did break the hand of an Israeli soldier, and he was sentenced, for whatever reasons, and he was sentenced for 3 months home arrest.
So he actually attacked a soldier, an Israeli soldier.
And breaking his hand.
Broke his hand or arm.
Nevertheless, because he was a Jew, the right member of society, he was sentenced to 3 months in home imprisonment, so in his own home. Whereas a Palestinian boy who didn't do anything, for assuming that he was plotting a crime, he was sentenced for 3 years in prison. This is the meaning.
This is apartheid.
This is apartheid.
2 laws, 2 people, same country.
Let's end the episode with a good.
BDS Australia, which is a coalition of advocacy groups and Australians, have been running a campaign against SBS, or in fact asking SBS to honour the call for boycott, divestment and sanctions, and not to broadcast the Eurovision 2019 because it's going to be held within Israel. And BDS Australia sent a letter to each of the directors of the SBS telling them that they'll be running a campaign, that they should heed our call to not broadcast this event. Interestingly, not long after the brochures were printed, they included the SBS logo, but it says Boycott Eurovision 2019, Don't Celebrate Israel's Apartheid Crimes, Free Palestine, #BDS. BDS Australia received a letter from SBS's corporate lawyer saying, cease and desist using our logo. We're going to sue you for using improper use of our logo. We don't endorse the boycott. You shouldn't be using our logo. Now, interestingly, BDS Australia is not a big organisation by any stretch of the imagining, even with the great success of having the Royal Flying Doctor Service cancel their contract and not proceed with Elbit Systems, who are complicit in death, destruction and murder in Gaza, in West Bank, etc. Interestingly, this sort of what we would think was a backstory, the Australian led with an exclusive by Remy Varga, who, published an article commenting on the SBS letter. And what was good is, we had some fantastic quotes from the BDS spokesman, Hilmi Dabar, who said, "We love SBS and we enjoy Eurovision, but having the song contest just 50 kilometres from Gaza, where Palestinians are shot to death for protesting their rights is astonishingly inappropriate. And interesting, not long after the Australian ran an article, The Guardian also did, and Colin Frielsey did a brilliant quote in that. Given the siege of Gaza and the slaughter of Palestinians, the televising of the Eurovision Song Contest must not be allowed to art-wash Israeli brutalities. I strongly support the boycott of this event and urge others to do the same.
That's all the time we have this week, Nasser. And do not forget to tune in next Saturday for Shams Musa's Nakba story. With this, we come to the end of this episode. Thank you, Nasser. Thank you, Shams, for being with us today. And we look forward to hearing your story next week. And thank you, our listeners. Bye-bye.